All right. So, good evening, everybody. This is A.L. Johnson with Elevating Men, back with another deep conversation about men's mental health and how we can improve that. We've had a couple excellent shows the past few weeks, but before we get into that, I want to wait for a few people to come in so that they can join in this conversation with us because I do believe it's extremely important and people will find some benefit in this conversation, I'm sure. Before we get started on the conversation, I do have a couple of announcements that I want to make. And so if you could just pull out your calendar because we definitely want you guys taking this journey with us. The first thing is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. If you could turn on to your radio, 107.3 FM. Myself and Lauren, the Vice President of Elevating Men, will be on 107.3 having a conversation with Darren Story about elevating men and our journey to help other men find themselves and improve their mental health. And so definitely come be a part of that. Also on the 25th this month, we have the Man Cave Prayer Breakfast at Oasis Church with Pastor Brooks. It's going to be a powerful, powerful event. It's free to the public. And so we want to invite each and every one of you to come out and get some healing. Again, it's 100% free. Breakfast will be provided and we'll be having excellent conversation. Also, one of our partners, Men's Wellness Collective, it's a group of therapists that we've connected with and we're working on a few things. They actually have some group therapy sessions that are going on right now. And so if you want to be a part of that, if you could contact either of us on the panel, we can get you connected with them. It is a very, very good session. So I want to make sure that you guys are able to take advantage of that. Don't forget, we're here every Monday night at 8 p.m. This streams live for my page, as well as the Elevating Men Facebook page, also on our YouTube channel. And sometime in between now and next week, make sure that you visit elevatingmen.com, where you can get a little more information on our mission and what we're all about. And so before we go any further, I do want to introduce the people on the panel for those of you who maybe this is your first time. And so I'll start with you, AB. Can you just give people your name and just who you are really quick?
Hey, good morning or good evening, everyone. Andrew Boykin, aka Dinner and Dialogue, also the Restoration, restin20.org, building tomorrow.
Thank you. Lauren, Vice President of Elevated Men, how you doing this evening?
Good evening. Always a pleasure to be in the house. Lauren Jones, aka Lojo the Car Pro. Good evening, good people.
All right. Kareem Jackson, thanks for tuning in, brother. He said, is this a rerun? No, we are live, and this is new content. So thanks for being here. We appreciate you. LaRon, Mr. Barnes, how you doing?
What is going on, my brother? It is so happy to be here. LaRon, the motivator, a.k.a. LBZ. Also, the balanced entrepreneur, man, is so happy to be in the house, and I can't wait for this amazing conversation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction myself. The brother that you see to the bottom right corner, his name is Mr. Lorenzo Hughes. I met him several years ago at a radio station. We were both working at 95.3 FM. Shout out to Chef Dev and his wife. But there was one thing about this brother that I noticed right off the bat. And this is just a testament to the fact that you never really know like who's watching you and what they're taking from you. But one thing that I noticed about this brother is he's punctual. He's hardworking, he's focused, and we were both learning the business kind of at the same time. And I noticed he would always have a notebook and a pen, right? And he would take notes meticulously. There it is, right there. He would take notes meticulously. He learned the soundboard. He learned everything that he needed to learn. And over time, I've just kind of watched him. That's one thing that social media does. It allows us to connect and just get a glimpse into people's lives. And if you scroll down his page, what you'll notice is he's been an actor for several years. And I always respect a person who's able to do the same thing for a long time, right? It's not about if he's become won a Grammy or an Emmy or, any of those things. It isn't about making millions of dollars. It's about that consistency and that commitment, that dedication to a thing. And so he's been an actor for a very long time on top of several other things, but I had to get that out of the way. Mr. Hughes, I respect you immensely, and I'm glad to have you on the panel. Can you give your own personal introduction? We'd appreciate that. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
There we go. All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate that, brother, man. I'm happy to be on the panel and everything. And yeah, you're absolutely right, man. We met several years ago at Praise 95.3 FM radio. So yeah, I'm a former radio personality, human rights consultant, I like to consider myself a mindset speaker. I'm a clinical and orthopedic manual massage and exercise therapist. And like I said, like you said, I'm a long-time professional actor. I'm here in Chicago right now. I've been up here since May, working. So, and like I said, I try to stay consistent in the things that I do and try to impact as many people as I can and touch as many minds as I can. And that's what I'm hoping to do tonight.
Thank you so much. And you could be doing anything right now, as I know you're a busy brother. And so if you could just maybe in just 1 minute kind of share with us what your connection to Elevating Men is. I know you've seen a few of the shows, but what is it that inspired you to come and share?
You know, since Praise 95.FM radio, man, I've always been inspired to elevate men, man. And I say that because when you look at the things that have impacted us as men, and when I say as men, from when we came out the womb, you know, as kids, you know, a lot of us grew up, with fathers not in the household, being raised by our mothers, and you can look at the results of what it was like for us to try to make our own way and try to figure out through trial and error what it is to be a man and trying to figure these things out. And I, early in my childhood, man, and I say early in my childhood, I'm going to say since elementary school, you know, man, I had always been trying to figure this thing out, trying to figure out where my father was, man, being ashamed in elementary school when they had those bring your father to school days. And you was that kid that didn't, have that father coming to school. Matter of fact, I used to hide my permission slip. So I never took it home to my mother. And I used to make up excuses to my teacher of, why I didn't bring the permission slip or why my father wasn't able to come to the school. I never admitted that my father wasn't in the household because there was this deep-seated shame. And as the years went on, as a kid growing up into adulthood, I started to try to embrace, why I may have gone through the things I went through as a child and everything. And I kind of developed into who I am today, trying to confront a lot of these issues, not only having my own platform, but going on to a lot of brothers' platforms. And when I had a chance to listen to this platform, and I was impacted by it, and I was happy to see what all you brothers was doing, and I was inspired by it. So, I can't ignore not getting in and commenting and participating in any way I can. So, like I said, man, I'm here and I'm happy to be here, and I'm hoping that we can impact some people tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. And I resonate with that portion of your story about the father not being in the home, and it's daddy and donuts day, your father's not there, and the other children are looking at you like, where's your dad? I understand that. Listen, for those of you that are watching, do us a favor. I want you to share this with your network. We're getting ready to get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation. So hit the share button really quick so the people in your lives can be a part of this conversation as well. Also do us a favor, because this is a live stream. So sometimes there's going to be audio issues. There may be little glitches. If you could do us a quick favor, give us a thumbs up or a heart to let us know that you are hearing and seeing everything okay. That would be very, very helpful. So the last two shows, I just want to give you a quick recap. We talked about forgiveness of self and others. Very, very great episode. You can go and see that on our YouTube channel at Elevating Men. The next show that we had was why men have trouble connecting. It was about connecting. We have troubles connecting with our family, connecting with friends, business partners, etc. And so between those two conversations, there was a key word that kept coming up over and over and over again, and that was trust. This overarching lack of trust that we have. We don't trust each other. We don't trust people in our family. We don't trust the mainstream society. We don't trust our politicians. And so when you think about it, when we walk around day to day with this level of mistrust of everything and everybody, it keeps us closed off. And so therefore, we can't create the connections that we need to move forward in life, whether that be in business, romantically, friendship-wise, financially. It keeps us in a stalled state because we have a fear of connecting with other people because we don't want to get hurt. And so really briefly, I'm going to read the description of the show as we get ready to start. And it says, men who have trust issues limit themselves drastically because as much as we say we don't need people, we actually do. We need friends, we need family, we need relationships. When we can't find the will to trust, it kills our willingness to connect with others. This can hinder our growth financially, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. So today we're going to explore, what are some causes of that mistrust, and hopefully we'll find some solutions so that we can begin to open up and connect with the people around us. I pulled a couple images. As always, I like to start the show off because it takes a little time to get our minds clicking and things like that. And so this image here was very powerful for me, and it's a man with a mask on who's crying. And so when I see this, what comes to mind for me is that there's a mask that we all wear, right? When it comes to, maybe someone popping up at your house or catching you off guard. For women, it could be those who don't want to come outside without makeup on. For men, it could be the guy that doesn't want to come out if his clothes aren't as fresh as possible, right? There's a mask that we wear. And those tears, I believe, come from the fact that we feel unloved. We don't trust the people around us to accept us for who we really are. And so we can never take the mask off. And so when I see this man with this mask and he's crying, what comes to mind for me is a man who doesn't feel accepted. He probably wants to take the mask off, but he's afraid to. That's what I get out of that. And I want you guys to be thinking about what you get out of these images as well, because I'll ask you next. This next one here, it says it's hard to trust when all you have from the past is evidence why you shouldn't. And so because we always talk about mental health here, we tend to go back to childhood and to past things because our past truly does shape our future. And so when you've had a lot of instances where you weren't able to trust someone, or maybe you got stabbed in the back, so to speak, your future says that I can't trust anyone and I have evidence and reasons why I shouldn't. But again, that holds you back. Anybody ever heard of getting stabbed in the back by a friend or someone that you love? This says here, you can't blame me for my trust issues. Blame them, the people that did whatever they did to me. And what comes to mind for me is a person's not going to stab someone else in the back unless they're lacking or they're hurting. And so there's two sides to that conversation. I want to make sure that we get into that today as well. There's another one. It says it's harder to love people when you won't let yourself have faith in them. Think about that. Over and over again, you've put out trust and you've only received knives and scissors in your back in return. And so in the future, you don't have faith in anyone. It's a tough place to be. Tough place to be. And the last one here, it says, I look at you sometimes and I'm reminded of all the reasons this barrier went up around my heart. The beating being of me that so badly craves for two, but hardly has space for one. Often I think that there is not even a place for myself in me. And so that's what we're talking about today. We can actually get to a point where we don't trust people so much that internally, of course, we're a person as well. We don't even trust ourselves. And in this context, that's kind of the end of the road. When you don't even trust yourself, you got a serious problem. Now let's think about relationships a little bit. Guys, keep thinking, because I'm getting ready to come to you. There was a poem I found. I couldn't find a good image for it, so I'm just going to read it. Please follow along with this. If you're watching right now, share this with your network. Has anyone ever been here? Listen to this. I gave my all in the beginning and was left with almost nothing. So I learned to give less and less in each new relationship or friendships in hopes that when they left, I would hurt less because I didn't give much to begin with. Ouch. I don't know. Ladies, are there any ladies that are watching tonight? Have you ever felt like you gave so much that in your next relationship you gave less, just in hopes that, hey, whenever this ends or if this guy leaves or whatever happens, there'll be less pain because I gave less up front. So these are the things that we're dealing with. These are the issues here. And so I'm going to shut up for a second. And if anyone in the comment section If any of these photos or poems or sayings resonate with you, I'd like you to leave your comment in the chat section, and I'll be sure to address those here shortly. First, I want to start with you, Laurent. And so, Laurent, we've had a conversation just a little bit earlier today, right? And we were talking about a Bible verse that says all men are liars. And in reconciling that verse, some people can say, well, I'm an honest person. But the truth of the matter is many times we find reasons to lie to ourselves. I'm going to give you the floor for a couple minutes. Can you speak to a person who is lying to themselves to the point where they don't trust themselves anymore?
Look, I'm gonna tell you like this, Andrew. That was me, my brother. So I'm talking about I sat in the seat of that, of not trusting myself, and it affects us in a horrible way, y'all. I'm gonna tell you right now, because when you don't trust yourself, we're not willing to take risk on ourselves. We're not willing to go out and bet on us. You know, I found the reason why I was not trusting myself was because I was lying to myself. Now, I don't know how many of us can relate to that we've been lying to ourselves in so many areas. So when we say we're going to do something, like when me, I had commitment issues. I would say, you know what, I'm going to do this right here. And I wouldn't follow through. And so because I didn't follow through, after doing that for so long and long and long, I said, you know what, I'm not going to follow through anyway. So I might as well not go and do it. That's what led to procrastination, stagnation, frustration. And I think a lot of us deal with that. A lot of us are frustrated with our lives because it's that mask we talked about. We can put on a mask for everybody else, but we can't put on a mask for ourselves. And we gotta be honest about it. See, the honest truth is that we still try to lie to ourselves, but in the back of our mind, our subconscious won't allow us to. You hear what I'm saying? And we become fakers. We become pretenders. Now we can't be authentic because we're not authentic with our own selves. You hear what I'm saying? So it affects us. Our insecure. We'll become insecure. We'll put our trust issues on other people. We can't trust ourselves. We can't trust them because they may think like us as well. You hear what I'm saying? So those trust issues right there, Andrew, bro, they affect our self-esteem, bro. They affect our credibility with ourselves. And then ultimately our lives become dull. Our lives become frustrating. Our lives become just irritating because now we got to stand there and look at the person in the mirror and realize that we're the reason for the places that we're in right now because we never built that credibility and trust in us.
Definitely been there. Definitely been there, man. You can't get to a point where it's like, man, listen, I said I was going to start this project and then I didn't. I said I was going to quit this bad habit and I didn't. And so when it comes to New Year's resolutions, I just came past, 3 or 4 weeks ago, right? There are already people who have let themselves down. And that's just another layer of mistrust of self. And so that's one angle of it. Lorenzo, when we talk about the root of trust issues, right? So when it comes to not trusting ourselves, I believe that's something that happens over time. Generally, my assumption is that's maybe a teenage to adult problem. But one thing that you said in the opening monologue was about being that little boy that was sitting there at school and it's Daddy and Donuts Day, or it's Father's Day, or maybe it was Take Your Son to Work Day. And instead of you going and being at work with your father, you were there at the school, right? Can you speak to the mistrust that is created from the onset when the person who was supposed to love you and be there for you the most leaves you abandoned? You're muted.
Sorry about that. But let me put it to you like this. When you're a child, the thing you don't realize this when you're a child, but you learn this once you become an adult. When you're a child, you're probably at your most innocence. You're most innocent that you can be. I mean, there's a level of innocence that's there that that at the time is untampered with. And when you're confronted with the issues that I spoke of earlier, when you don't have a father there to participate in the father-like or fatherly type of events. And this is not to say that mothers can't contribute, but there is a level of validation that you get from your father that you just can't get from your mother. There's a level of approval that you receive from a father that you just can't receive from your mother. And when you have that absence, there's a deep-seated sense of abandonment. And to the mothers that are tuned in listening, I mean, I don't want you to feel any kind of way about this, but there are things that your son is, if you have a son, or even daughters, even if you have a son, there are things that he's probably not telling you. And what starts to happen or starts to fester at this point is this. And this is one of the things I always tell people: you got to think of the brain as fertile soil. And during that, you have a process called blossoming and pruning. And what happens is there's a point in time, and it usually starts around 7 years old, that a child's brain is very fertile, meaning that they're taking in a lot of information, and you have this growth of what's called brain dendrites, which dendrites are basically what causes the electrical impulses that exchange information in the brain. You know, the things that the child sees, the things that the child hears, is information that they take in, and they're starting to learn and develop a personality at this point. And when you have a child that's trying to wrestle with or deal with the feeling of, or the sense of abandonment, he's trying to process what's going on. So now he's starting to develop the feeling of shame and embarrassment. And he doesn't know why he feels this way. He's not only embarrassed of himself, but he almost tends to start to blame himself in a sense. He may even start to blame his mother. He may even start to blame, the father, which he may have not even met. But he's dealing with this level of shame that has started to grow. In my particular case, and I'm not going to say this is with every child, but I'm almost betting, it's with many young men, is that you have this sense of hurt and pain and anger kind of balled up in this ball. Now, how you deal with it is going to vary from person to person. Me, myself, I was this child where I was like, I felt sorry, for my dad at the time. I was like, well, man, I started building my own stories of why he wasn't there. I thought, well, maybe he's not here because I haven't reached out to him, or maybe he needs to hear from me. And I can recall talking to my mother and trying to bring it up. And this is not, like I said, my mom usually tries to tune in on a lot of the shows that I'm on. I don't know if she tuned in on this one, but there were things that she said, even growing up, about my father. And I'm sure now that I think about it, it was out of bitterness and things like that. And you hear a lot of mothers who would say things about a child's father just because he's not there. And this is not even knowing why he's not there, and you wondering why these things are being said. So it's like you're already curious about and embarrassed and ashamed about why your father's not there, but now you have this mother who has some type of deep-seated resentment or anger toward the father, and she expresses that openly to you. And so now you're curious about, okay, where's my father at? Is it something that I did? Well, what can I do? Can I write him a letter? And see, in my particular case, and this is where it hit home for me with my mother, was I was trying to write a letter to my father, and I was trying to talk to my mother discreetly about where he was in Detroit, Michigan. And I never really told her what I was doing, but I was trying to write this letter, and I never knew how to write a letter because I was young at the time. I was probably about 6 or 7. And what I did was I found a letter in the house, and I tried to imitate what I saw on that letter and put it on a letter, and I put it in the mailbox, the receiving right outside the door. And that's how she found the letter. I didn't go to the mailbox to deliver it. I put it in the mailbox discreetly, hoping that the mail carrier would take it and deliver my letter. And my mother found it in there. And that's when it hit home for her, you know, and then she tried to help me, you know, connect with my father. But what I want to say is that there is a deep-seated emotional issue that's taking place within our young men today that they're just not talking about or expressing to us. And I believe it's something that, you know, I believe personally as men that we need to really try to reach out and address, because we went through the things that we went through as children for a reason. And I'm gonna say this last thing, and then I'm gonna let you guys respond or tune in. I remember as a child, like I said, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I wasn't going to church every day, but I remember when I became an adult and I started thinking back, you know, my first relationship with prayer, and I believe we all can relate to this, was when you sat in your bedroom and you was crying about something that you was hurt of, and you would always say, well, God, why me? That right there is prayer. You don't even have to be introduced to prayer, but it just comes naturally. Nobody told me anything. Nobody had taught me about prayer, but you knew that there was a God or there was a higher power, and you would sit in your room in silence, looking out the window or doing whatever it is, laying in the bed, and you would be like, why me? And that's your first conversation. And I would say that was my first conversation with God, was like, why me? And then as you grow and you start to mature, those answers start to become visible to you.
Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. And there's so many things that you said that I resonate with. I'm going to digress for now. There's a couple comments that I want to address in the comments section. And then after that, Lauren, I want to get some of your thoughts and insight. But we got a comment here from Jordan Lewis. He's a part of the Men's Wellness Collective that I spoke of at the beginning. There's a group of therapists, and right now they're actually doing group therapy sessions. A couple of them are here in Kansas City, and so I want you all to be able to take advantage of that. Jordan, if you could do me a favor and leave a comment with how they can connect with you directly so they can take advantage of those sessions, I'd really appreciate it. But he says, I'm reading a great book right now called The Drama of the Gifted Child. It has made me realize just how often children, even in two-parent homes, aren't being validated due to the voids or wounds in the parents, highlighting the importance of dealing with our baggage as adults. Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. It's broken people trying to create and nurture whole people. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do. Kareem Jackson, we appreciate you, brother. Kareem, he is the owner of Black Kansas City Magazine. Definitely check that out at blackkcmag.com. He says, I have a good dad, but women have just taken him for everything. I resent no inheritance because of his multiple divorces. Now he's old and single, and women have taken him for everything. Sorry to hear that, brother. Sorry to hear that. Trust. That's what we're talking about. Trust issues. Trust issues. Miss Rhonda K, thanks for tuning in. We always appreciate your support. Trust issues because the ones we give it to didn't earn it. Appreciate that comment. Miss Latrice Tucker, I felt that wholeheartedly. I did as well. And so for those of you that are just tuning in today, we're talking about trust issues and how that affects us. Please share this with your network because the conversation is important. Lorenzo, you said a lot. You said a lot. And Lauren, I want you to be thinking of your comment, but I just want to recap what he said. And for those of you that didn't hear everything that he said, I encourage you to go back to the beginning of this video because it was extremely powerful. He talked about the shame and embarrassment of being that child who was fatherless. He talked about how he coped by imagining in his own mind what the reasons were, right? He even mentioned, you know, lying to his friends and lying to his teachers about why his father wasn't there. And I went through the same thing. And so I really felt that. He talked about trying to rationalize what was going on. He even made excuses for him and, you know, pain that his mother had, things that he overheard. He internalized those things as well. He even got to a point of writing a letter to his father. Like, these are some deep things. And then he ended with a prayer that said, God, why me? Like, why did I have to be the child whose father wasn't there? Why did that have to be my life? And so, Lauren, I know you've had a similar upbringing as far as, maybe the relationship with your father or some difficulties with your parents. What are you hearing right now? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, he said a mouthful. Very, very triggering. But no, anyway, when I think about that first image that you put up there with the guy with the mask and the tears, the thought that kind of came to my head was, even with the mask on, your tears still push through. Your pain still pushes through. So the mask isn't really hiding anything. It's just your perception that your mask is hiding, but other people can still see your pain, your turmoil, and things of that nature. When you talk about, trust issues, stemming in a single parent home, where the father is absent. Uh, you know, the interesting part is, until you get healing, you are still that child, even as a man. You're a kid in a man's body as it relates to that. And you pass those trust issues in different ways down to your children. You pass them into different relationships that you have, whether it's, with whether it's for a romantic relationship, or just, even your homeboys, and things of that nature. And the scary part is when it comes to our offspring, and us being very, very, we don't recognize, I guess would be the way to say it. We don't recognize that we're passing down this pain. And I often, and I say this all the time, uh, it's okay to apologize to your children, because the same way you were wronged, you're going to wrong your children. They say this: the people that are closest to you that hurt you the most. And that could be vice versa. You're going to hurt the people that are closest to you as well. And you have to, with your children, you have to apologize. You have to dig deep to, find the sources of your pain, get healing for that, so that you don't continue to pass that to your children. Growing up without my dad in in the house, it was even more challenging because I was the oldest boy. And so it was the expectation that, you the man of the house now. And been given this title, but you don't have the tools to run a household. So, I was trying to protect my brothers in a lot of ways, especially trying to protect them from my father. Uh while I was still dealing with my own pain and my own battles as it related to not having my father in the house. But as I grew older, I began to understand that I was passing down that pain in a different way, trying to be protective. And, you know, me having to go on my journey to figure out, why my dad was absent. They needed to go through that same journey too. And we were able to share stories about our own pain, our own feelings. Some of them were similar, some of them were different, because everybody deals with abandonment in different ways. And so, being able to just share and regurgitate, was kind of you know it was good in its own right. I remember, I tell this story all the time about, you and I linking up, Andrew, and how my brother was like, "Hey man, sharp dude, y'all got similar pasts," and I had trust issues, so I was like, "I'm not calling that guy. I'm not gonna call him. Like, he just gonna, he's gonna be here for a little bit, and then, it'll just be another guy that kind of passed through." uh but taking that leap of faith, and saying, you know what, you don't know what's going to happen. It could be, the best thing that ever happened to you. And if you don't move into it, you'll never know that you missed a blessing. You just will never know. And so, when it comes to trust, as I've been saying, trust everybody. They will expose themselves in due time. And all that means is that learn to establish relationships gradually. Don't just jump in with, two left feet or 2 feet in general. Gradually let those relationships build, and people will reveal themselves in order to for you to know, if they're trustworthy or if they're not trustworthy. but you also have to let your barriers down, because sometimes your barriers don't allow people in, and so they aren't able to make a connection because you actually never let them in.
Mm, that's deep. That's deep. You said something. You said until you get healing, you're a man in a child's body. That resonated with me. Can
Yes.
you elaborate on that just a little bit? And while you're thinking about that, Andrew, I'm going to come to you next. I want you to talk to us a little bit about the mask. And before we get to you, there's some comments that we need to catch up on. But Lauren, can you please elaborate on that? You said until you get healing, you're a man in a child's body. What do you mean by that?
Well, when you talk about, the nature of a child, the nature of a child is growing, learning, evolving, and things of that nature. And when our growth is stunted, when our evolution is stunted, we aren't able to grow into the people that we are destined to be, because we're still dealing with issues from our childhood, or really not dealing with issues from our childhood. And so they're just festering and uh, creating issues as adults that only were exasperated by something that was birthed as a child. And so, you know and I say this all the time, a lot of us are very emotionally unintelligent and emotionally flawed, because we haven't taken the time to deal with our issues, our pains. We haven't had conversations with the people that we need to have conversations with, to express, what we went through, how that made us feel. And we just shut out so much light, because this pain and this darkness just sits and it festers. And the longer it festers, the harder it is to break.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for elaborating on that. I appreciate it. There are some comments here I want to catch up on, and then I'm going to come to you, Andrew. So get ready, brother. Get ready, because we're always looking for wisdom from you. Seriously. Jordan Lewis, he's with the Men's Wellness Collective. As I said before, they do have group therapy sessions that are going on right now, right now. And so if you're a man and you're watching this and you feel that you'd like to get with a group, a supervised group from licensed therapists, connect with him. He says you can email connect@menswellnesscollective.com, or you can email Jordan directly at jlewiswellness@gmail.com, and we'll help you get all set up. Jordan, this is my commitment and our commitment from Elevating Men. If anyone comes to you from this show, we will cover half of the cost of one of their sessions. And so, just inbox me and let me know, hey, this person came in from the show. We will take care of half of one of their sessions, just as goodwill and to get them on the path to healing. And so please share this with your network. If you're watching this, if you know someone who needs help, please share this content right now, please. Pastor Brooks, the Oasis Church, being betrayed by a so-called friend creates a wall. Trust doesn't come easy. Absolutely. We have Miss Michelle Harrison. I don't believe I've seen your name on here before, but if I have, I apologize. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your support. She says it's better to put your confidence in God and trust no man, Psalms 118:8. My question to you, if you're still watching, can you just elaborate just a little bit? I do understand the verse, but could you just give us a little bit of elaboration on that? I'd appreciate it. We also have Michael Bowie. Thanks for tuning in. So many people get faith confused with trust. So many people get faith confused with trust. Give us a little more. Give us a little more, Mr. Bowie. I think I know where you're going with that, but I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. Miss Nisi, what's going on, Auntie? She's my play auntie. But she said that makes so much sense. I believe that was in reference to Lauren's last comments. Thank you so much. Miss Rhonda K. She said the guy on my birth certificate was in prison most of my life growing up. I can relate to needing or wanting a dad for protection, comfort, the conversation, and having him around. I lied as a kid to cover up where he was. Now he's around trying to be in a relationship and often asking me to forgive him. I have no anger against him. And I think she hit the word limit. And so if you could come back through with the rest of your comment, we'd appreciate that. I definitely resonate with that. I remember particularly one summer, my dad was supposed to come and pick me up. All summer, I had my bags packed. Several Saturdays, I sat at the door waiting. He never came, and my friends were you know, kind of laughing and making fun of me, poking fun, and say, oh, I thought you were going to be gone, you know. And so I really do know what that feels like, and I would make up lies and, you know, try to cover for him, and it's a painful place to be. Painful place to be. Latrice, you said, just like a fish, you can't grow in a small fish tank. Thank you. Makes sense. Okay, I think we're just about caught up. Jordan Lewis, he says, a child in a physically or emotionally unsafe environment will adapt and start to develop traits or behaviors to help them survive and stay safe, usually in the form of getting love from our caregivers. If we don't go back and address and heal, we grow up and continue to act in those same ways, even when we're no longer in that unsafe environment. So those coping mechanisms stick. Makes a lot of sense. Andrew, I'm going to put that image of the mask back up for you. It's something that you've always talked about. To be honest with you, you're one of the first person I heard talk about the mask that we wear, not just as men, but as people in general. So I'm going to put that image back up. And I just want you to, in the context of what we're talking about now, speak about the mask that you see.
So the mask that I see is actually not a mask. That is my original face. That's the face that I took outside, and my friend said, leave it up, please. And my friend said, ooh, you're so black. Oh, where's your hair? Oh, look at your clothes. And that hurt. Because I just went outside as a kid. I just went outside in all of my innocence, in all of my vulnerability, in my real self. And that's what they saw. And that's what I felt. So the first tear fell. Then when I got a little bit older and went to middle school, it's like, you don't look like us. And you just, and they just described everything they saw. And that's all my parents had to equip me with when I walked out of the house was what they had to equip me with. So basically I had my clothes, my tennis shoes on, and myself, my vulnerability. And I got older and I got into a relationship, and I did not look like the other men who were in different status, who had a different status in a relationship. And as I got older, I just kept seeing myself from for the first, second, third, fifth time through my eyes, as I was looking at what I thought was myself in other people. I think I get this from James Baldwin, how I interpret one of his sayings, how as a kid, you don't see yourself maybe at 5 years old, everything is white, or everything is looks like what's outside of you. So you don't even know what you look like. You don't know who you are, but your innocence is what you are wearing. And eventually when you get older, you start to put on this particular shaved face. You start to put the weave in your hair, or the braids in your hair, or you put the perm in your hair, or whatever, or you cut your hair, whatever the man needs to do to start to look like the man that he is supposed to look like. But by that time, his vulnerability has been shot, because he came out with a heart of gold, and the way of the world made his heart turn cold. And I got that from Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I get that. I get that. There's this point of not being accepted that creates a lack of trust, right? Like, I can't be my 100% genuine self around you. I don't trust you enough to completely be myself. That's a statement that also makes me think about our romantic relationships when it comes to women. You hear women say a lot of times, like, he won't open up to me, or I don't feel like I'm getting the real him. If you're a lady and you're watching this, give us a like or a heart if you have ever been in that situation, or if you've ever felt that from a man that you were in a relationship, like he really wasn't giving you like all of himself. There are so many trust issues that get created. Like I said, it stems from childhood. So Brother Lorenzo, Brother Hughes, he talked about the abandonment from a father. It's something that most of us on this panel have experienced. So that's one layer of trust gone right off the bat as a child. And then Andrew alluded to the friendships that we create as children. And so say if you come from a less fortunate family and you don't have the most expensive shoes or the nicest outfits, kids are cruel. They're cruel and they're tough on each other. And so who was your friend today may be looking for that boost in popularity tomorrow. And so maybe they were playing with you on the slide or playing with you, playing basketball today. Tomorrow, they're making fun of you. And so now you don't know how to trust when it comes to your friendships, right? Like, is this friendship genuine? Are you going to be my friend today and tomorrow, or is it just a today thing? And then we get to relationships. We reach our teenage years, and I believe that one thing that happens to everyone, has anybody, let me make sure, anybody on the panel, have you ever had your heart broken, like early on, as a teenager, as a young man, right? Because we get into these serious relationships too soon, right? We start dating early, and it's only natural that, that young lady or, that young man that you had a crush on and you were vibing with, it's only natural that at some point your eyes are going to turn elsewhere because you're young and you're trying to figure things out. But then that heartbreak comes in, and now you have another reason to guard and protect yourself. And so now we're running around between abandonment issues from our parents, failed friendships as a child, that first heartbreak during your teenage years. By the time you reach a full-blown adult, you have so many walls put up that really hinder your ability to connect with other people. LaRon, I know you're going to have to leave in a little bit, and we haven't heard from you for a while. We've talked about so much. What thoughts are you having right now?
Woo-hoo! Trust issues, y'all. Trust issues. I was thinking about that mask, and you better not put that mask on. That mask, you know what? Go ahead and put the mask up real quick. Put the mask up. This is interesting to me because when I look at that mask, I did think of a man, an individual covering up. I thought of a man not being vulnerable because of acceptance. And we talked a little bit about the past and being rejected in the past as children, being rejected by our parents, being rejected by that girlfriend or boyfriend, not feeling good enough. And so we put on a mask that allows people to accept us, not realizing that people accept the mask. They don't accept you. And it does take a level of vulnerability that we have to, in order for us to trust. Because here's the thing. We got to trust somebody. You hear what I'm saying? We're not on this earth to go through this earth saying, I don't trust nobody. Because there's certain people that God has put in our lives to help us heal, to help us deal with spiritual issues, to help us deal with relational issues. There's some people that we can trust. We just got to know who we can trust, who we can be vulnerable with. And here's what I say. Test the level of vulnerability. Test how much that person can handle. Give them something that seems deep but is not deep, just to test the level of trust. Because here's the thing. There's certain people that I can talk to when I'm having challenges and dealing with communication with my wife. I can call my dad. It may not be your dad. It may be your mom. It may be your best friend. It may be somebody who just listens to you and lets you know that they care by listening and not always having an answer. But we have to listen. We have to have brothers and sisters that we can trust and we can be vulnerable to. Because what I've realized is that when we are not vulnerable, when we hold it within, it turns and it festers into greater pain. And the pain affects us and everyone around us. It's a disease, it's a sickness that destroys relationships. And relationships are the vehicle that takes us to our next. But I'm telling you, trust issues only shows that you're broken, hurt, and scarred. If you have trust issues, you need to be healed. There's a healing that needs to take place. And we can get into that healing later. But trust issues will destroy your soul.
That's real. That's real. Wow. Rhonda K, she says, being able to trust the one you love or desire is a beautiful thing. I agree. I agree. But so many of us have barriers like that just really prevent that from happening. And like LaRon said, we need to heal. Like there has to be healing. And I really want to get all of your thoughts before you have to go, because I know you're almost at that hour mark. What does that healing look like? And could you give us just one or two tips, just in your own words, on how to find that healing? What are your thoughts there?
Healing looks like this. Healing starts with acknowledging that I'm hurt. And then healing starts with acceptance of self. Here's the thing about it. Because we're hurt doesn't mean other people are hurt. Accepting that we have been hurt, making the decision to move on, making the decision to say, I don't want to be hurt anymore. You hear what I'm saying? You have to really say, I don't want to be hurt anymore. Do you know, I went through my hurt. I've been hurt. And I said, I don't want to be hurt anymore. I spent many nights crying because I felt betrayed. How could someone I love betray me? But I said, you know what? Hurt people hurt people. And not only do hurt people, well, that's the honest to God truth. But you have to understand that people who hurt you, you hear what I'm saying? Once again, we know that they hurt people. But at the end of the day, just because they hurt us doesn't mean we have to drown in that hurt and respond to everybody with the same hurt. Forgive. That's how you get healed, Andrew. That's what it is. Forgiven. I forgive them. See, forgiveness, when you forgive people, we have to learn to forgive and release. Forgiving doesn't mean I have to keep you in my circle and keep giving you my everything. Forgiving means, you know what? You did what you did. Okay, it hurt. I accept it. But I'm moving on. I'm not going to allow you to be that close to me. That's how you heal. You put them in their place. You move them at a certain distance to say, I'm going to love you from a distance. I'm not going to let you in my household and know what's going on in my marriage. I'm not going to let you know what's going on in my business or my career or the exciting things in my life. Stop in that place. I forgive you, but I'm going to love you from a distance. And when I'm going to say hi to you, I'm going to hug you, but you are over there. Allow people to be where they are. Put them in their place. And you forgive them. And know that you forgive them. Learn to forgive and put them in their position. And I'm telling you. But here's the thing. The way that you know you've forgiven them is if you don't feel that turning in your spirit and in your body when you embrace them, that you know it's not fake, that you're not talking about them when you left, that you're not feeling that certain way about them. Let him go. Your healing isn't forgiving them. That's point blank, period. I had to forgive some folk. And it healed me. It liberated me. Because now I know, look, you won't be that close to me no more. I love you. That's some real stuff.
I get that. That's something. That's something. And see, what comes to mind for me is, you put this person in their place, like you said, kind of move them outside of your immediate circle. But the question arises, and this question isn't necessarily for you, but if you want to answer it, you can. The question arises, how do you prevent yourself from making everyone stay outside of that circle? Because you let someone in, you had to push them out. You let another one in, you had to push them out. Now here comes this brand new person who hasn't offended you in any way, but you've had to push so many people out of your circle. How do you remain open enough to let someone new in?
Andrew, look, bro, all you do, bro, is that you test their level of trust, bro. Like, you got to be conscious of this. This is something that's conscious. You literally test people's trust. Like, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be vulnerable, but I'm not gonna tell you what's going on in my bed. I'm not gonna tell you what's going on, you know, in certain areas of my life. No, I'm gonna tell you something, and I'm gonna tell you, hey, look, I'm gonna see if I can trust you with not saying something that I offer you, tell you that's not that important. You have to test the level of trust. That's what it is. You're not gonna know how much you can trust somebody if you don't give them something to show them to show where you can test them at. You will never know, bro, unless you test folk. Never. Point blank period.
I appreciate that. I was just curious to your response, Lorenzo. I want to come to you. Andrew, I did see that you had your hand up. What was your comment?
Oh no, go ahead, Lorenzo.
That boy fired up. Hey, unmute your phone now. Unmute your computer. We can't hear you.
You're muted.
I don't know. I'm getting so excited to even talk. But anyway, I was just listening to what LaRon was saying, but it took me back to something that I heard DMX say, and it just kind of stuck in my head. He said, "Trust everyone. You gotta trust everyone. Trust everyone to be themselves, and trust that you will see them well.
That's real. You
gotta trust that a snake will bite you, a liar's gonna lie to you." Trust a thief is going to steal from you. Trust an abuser is going to abuse you. And those are things you got to do. You got to trust everyone and trust that they will be themselves. And you would do that. Just you got to start getting to the point where we get to know people, get to know somebody before you let them get too close to you. Once you get to know them, then you know what level of trust and how to trust them. But yeah, trust everybody. Trust them to be themselves.
Is it? I just want to just expound a little bit. Is it kind of like in the justice system, where it's innocent until proven guilty? Is that how you approach it, or is it a little different than that?
I think it's a little bit different than that. It's like, for example, you gonna show me who you are. Like if I just met you and we become friends, usually they say, when you have a conversation with somebody, usually the first 5 minutes, you know who you have an idea of who they are. And whenever you're dealing with an individual, you want to start right away, especially if you're trying to develop some type of relationship or friendship with them. You want to start right away evaluating who they are, who this person is. And like LaRon was saying, sometimes you got to test people if they say who they are, if they are who they say they are.
So yeah, because it brings up so many things to mind, because one of the big problems that I feel we have is our lack of trust. And so if we start our relationships from a point of I don't trust you, I got this wall here, I got this barrier that you got to climb first. And I agree. Don't get me wrong. But it just makes me think about that. What were you going to say?
I don't think it's so much as putting up a barrier, because I trust most people, man. I trust most people. Like LaRon was saying, that's how God communicates to us, is through people. You know, and I love customer service, man. I love people. As an actor, I am a people watcher. I imitate people. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at us and you pay attention, we are a very entertaining species. If you look at some of the stuff we do, but I honestly can tell you that I do trust people, but do believe this: I am watching you, though. I am watching you, and I know it is somewhere in the Bible. I don't even know the scripture, but as you age, you start to develop a level of wisdom where you can see people for who they are. Now, when you're younger, a lot of things you overlook, and we can all look back on things that we failed to see. And after we went through that trial or that tribulation, we recognize that stuff afterwards. You're like, wow, why didn't I see that then? Why didn't I recognize it? But see, as you get older and you start to develop that wisdom, you can see these things. They're more apparent to you.
Makes sense. Man, that's so many. Okay, LaRon, and then Andrew. LaRon, I know you had something you wanted to say. What was it?
You know what, brother? uh, you know what? It was so many good things said. I got caught up with what Lorenzo was saying. It's cool. Go ahead and go to
Yeah,
Andrew.
you got to have a notepad with this show, bro. You got to have a notepad.
Already know. Look, already know. Look, actually, I have to depart. Actually, that's when I'm coming up to. I end up getting a text and all, letting me know.
Okay.
Ready? But listen, I love the show. I thank you. I'm so excited about the show. This show has been amazing. Look, I just want to let you all know I love you all. I appreciate you all. Go check out LaRon the Motivator and the Balanced Entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, I'm telling you, we're going to the next level, y'all. But hey, look, this show has been amazing. Until next week, I cannot wait to see y'all on the next one.
We appreciate you, man. We appreciate you. Thank you. Follow him, LaRon the Motivator and the Balanced Entrepreneur.
Yes.
All right. We'll see you next time, brother. We'll see you next time.
Sure.
Andrew, you had something that you wanted to add to the conversation.
Oh, I had plenty to say, but Lorenzo took everything, so all my notes is gone now. So, dang, Lorenzo. Shoot, no, I'm just kidding. But the way that I would offer an opportunity to deal with this trust thing is possibly consider that we don't necessarily know what trust really means. For me, the way that I interpret that is trust is an agent that allows us to act. And prior to that trust, there has to be something else, maybe a belief or a plan or a reason. And then what happens is if there is a reason or a plan, then we trust that because it's clearly identified. The plan, the reason is clearly identified that you go from A to B, then you will see C. However, what we do, and this is just my opinion, what I do, let me put it that way. I don't have a plan. I don't have a reason. So therefore, I look for persons and I invest my trust in them. I invest my action agent into them so that they would actually act the way that I need them to act, the way that I need them to act. And that is not what they were there for. They don't even know what the plan is. They don't even know what I need them for. So all they're being is themselves. And I have put this trust into them that they will do what I need them to do without any type of instruction, without any type of clarity. And then they fail me. Then they fail me. Or did I fail to have a plan? Did I fail to have a belief? Did I fail to have an actual direction that was clear in why I even invited them this close into my need, this close into this particular area that I needed trust from, that I needed them to trust this, that if you do this, then we will, or I will get here. Did that make sense?
Help me out with that. Help me out with that. Can we start from the beginning of a relationship and you just kind of paint a picture for us? Because what you said is we don't know what trust means, and that a plan allows someone to trust because they know what to expect. They know that A leads to B leads to C. And so in practice, just say men who have trouble connecting. That was our last show. You meet a man on the basketball court, you guys hit it off really quick. What does it look like to set the expectation for your friendship up front? What does that conversation even sound like?
The conversation sounds a whole lot like a proposal. I propose that this is what I will do, and I will be very clear as to what I will do in this relationship. I will listen to you. I will play basketball with you. I will respond to you. I will put this in words, in writing, in clarity. And then that other person will actually counter propose or offer a negotiation or accept the proposal. Kind of like in any relationship, there is an opportunity for a proposal. Many people get into a relationship with the expectation, not the understanding, not the proposal. So therefore, there is no negotiation going on until they actually start or get to a point where negotiation is or clarification is now necessary.
And so here's the part that's difficult, I believe, for a lot of people, is just like the image before with the man with the mask. We have our mask on. We meet someone else who also has a mask on. And so when you try to create a plan and expectation, how do we know that we're actually speaking to the person and not the mask? So my thought is you've taken your mask off and revealed yourself at this point, I'm assuming. And now you're trying to create an expectation or set a plan in place so that this person feels comfortable enough to take off their mask. How can we recognize when the mask is off and we've actually gotten to the heart of the person? Because I think that, especially with social media, there's so many masks being worn that it makes it difficult to have true communication, true, open, honest communication. There's always things that are possibly being hidden or, pushed down a little bit. And so how do we actually know that we've gotten past the mask?
So to give you an example, will you put Rhonda K's comment up there, 10:03 p.m., God said, trust him. So that came from, excuse me, that came from Matthew, what is it? Matthew something. Jesus said, it was basically the first, this is the first and great commandment. What is the greatest commandment? And in Matthew says, this is the greatest commandment. Excuse me. No. Jesus said unto him, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and greatest command. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love their neighbor as thyself. And forgive me, Rhonda K, because I think there's actual things says or scripture that says trust God and not man. But the way that I interpret that basically says that the Bible is a plan. God made it clear. So all God is asking for, in order for you to become this active agent, trust it. That is the in-between portion between the belief and the action, is to now trust it without question. Here's the clarity all the way through. If you do this, then this will happen. All things work for the good for those who love the Lord and so stuff. If you love me, if you do this, then the good will happen. I might not be the good and I might have to learn that, but the good will happen. So I say all that to say, we don't necessarily make our intentions clear. We don't necessarily sit down and say, okay, this is me. Not this guy. This is me. And this is what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that if you will accept this part of me, this part of me, this part of me, this part of me, I can be this vulnerable in front of you. This is what I need to know. Will you love this or respect this? And then that person will actually pull off her mask and say, well, this is me. Will you love all of this? Because that's what I need from you. And then you'll go even further into defining this proposal on how we're going to get here, where we're going to get here, when we're going to get here, what we're going to produce within this union, so that there will be a trust that I will be my word. But we don't put the word forth. We don't have a word forth. And therefore, we hope that everyone else will fit into what we want from them, which is trust. The agent.
That part. It's like we can't even get to the plan until we both have our masks off. Like, the plan is necessary. I 100% agree. But as long as we both have our masks on, we can't plan anything. Lorenzo?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But to take that mask off as men, And we know what this feels like. You want to feel like you're in a safe place first. A lot of times as men, we're not in a safe place. We don't feel like we're in a safe place. So to take that mask off, we got to be sure that we're in a safe place to take it off. And I know I was looking at something else Ron DeKay had brought up after Pastor while Pastor was speaking. She said something in regards to uh, something about God instructing her how to trust a man. Let me ask you this question here, Miss Rhonda K. The men that you're talking about, do you see God in the men that you're talking about? Because when you look at how we choose relationships, sometimes we don't even see what it is that we want in a person that we want to trust. Do you see in the person that you want to submit trust to, do you see God in those people? You know, same with women. Do you see God as men? Do we see God in the women that we choose in our lives? Sometimes when you go back and look and you think about it, you didn't see not one hint of God in that person, and you wonder why you chose that person or what you were looking at or focusing on during that moment in your life. But you want to try and look and see and make sure that you see God in the people that we develop relationships with. Do we see God?
Mm.
Can I,
Sure. I just want him to elaborate just a second. When you're instructing us to make sure that we see God, what are some of the attributes that we're looking for?
It's simple things it's simple things like, you know, how is this person trying to better themselves? Like a lot of times we look for situations like, what can this person do for me? Right? It's like when we look for relationships, what can this person do for me, instead of saying, what can I do for this person? If you have two people looking for ways to do for the person that they're with, a lot of times you're going to see them trying to earn certain levels of trust from that individual. Now, when we start saying we want to put trust in God first, yes, I don't disagree with that. But when you're developing relationships with people, you want to look for examples of healthy behaviors from that person. You want to look for healthy behaviors. My first marriage was a very violent. I was a victim of domestic violence, which we're gonna save that for hopefully another conversation. As a man, I was 20 years old, and I was in love, but I was in love with this woman, and I married her, and didn't know that I was being abused. I called it. I saw it as being something else. And when I think about it, even though I had a deep-seated belief in God, I didn't see God in that woman when I look back.
I see. Andrew, you had something that you wanted to say, and then Lauren, I just want to get
go ahead, Lauren.
your thoughts on it.
I'll remember mine. Go ahead, Lauren.
Well, you can see God in just about anybody. It's how long you see it, right? How long is this sustained? I feel like you can see a piece of God in just about everybody. You know, it's how long does it stay? You know, is it consistent? I think, you know, when we talk about this trusting, you know, trust God, don't trust man. Well, that's a problem, I believe, in itself. Like, we don't trust God, you know, because we, you know, well, if I, you know, if God was God, why don't I have my father in my life? You know, if God was God, why am I not in a better place? Why am I not more prosperous? So we even lose our trust in God, you know. So, you know, if that is the starting point, many of us have a lot of work to do if we have to trust God before we trust man. You know, I tend to think that, you know, if we as humans are created in God's image, you know, we are to, you know, in ways trust man. You know, I think our expectations sometimes are a little bit misguided, and that's how we are able to lose trust so quickly. It's not a new statement that the people that are closest to you will hurt you the most. And so, with that knowledge, why is it so easy for us to walk away when they do something that causes us to lose that trust? Why do we walk away? Or was it our fault? Was it our misguided expectation about what we expected from that individual? Uh, and so I will say, uh, you know, men have a harder time trusting because we haven't been taught to be as vulnerable in cases where women are kind of naturally built a little bit better like that. LaRon said something quite a while ago that really I ain't gonna say it spoke to me, but I was connected to it when he said, "I'm in pain." Like acknowledgement, the statement, "I'm in pain." That in itself is a sense of freedom when you can say that, to say, "I'm in pain," because that is the beginning of allowing that pain uh, to be brought to the forefront so that you can get to the place of healing. So you can get to the place of trusting others in a healthy way. I think we trust in an unhealthy way, which is why we get our feelings hurt so quickly, which is why we, have a tendency to quickly move on from somebody when they did us wrong, because it was an unhealthy sense, an unhealthy connection of trust in the first place. And so anything built on a weak foundation is going to crumble. And so if we're building this false sense of trust or a misguided sense of trust, well, of course it's gonna crumble quickly. I think we're so quick to run, instead of saying, "Hey, you know what? You hurt my feelings." Oh, I'm out. I knew he was gonna do that. No, you didn't, because if you knew he was gonna do that, you wouldn't have engaged in it in the first place. And the older that we do get, we are able to discern things sooner in some cases. But let's be honest, we're going to continue to get hurt by people because that is just the nature of humanity. Our expectations and what they're going to provide for us as well, because maybe they're going through something in a moment where we needed them, but they couldn't be there for us in the way that we needed them to be. And so we interpret that as not being able to trust them. And so we get into our own feelings instead of saying, "Hey, you hurt my feelings," for them to say, "Man, I apologize. I was going through something in the moment, and I probably should have told you that I can't be here for you right now." Like, it's nothing wrong with saying that. I can't be here for you right now. And, if you can't deal with that, then that's on you. That's not on them, because they are being honest. They are being vulnerable. They are telling you, "Hey, trust ain't on your side if you come to me with that right now." So,
Yeah.
hey, it's not. Hey, I apologize, but I have to push that back to you for you to find another source to get whatever you're trying to get in that moment.
You know what? That brings us to a point of expectations. That's a big part of trust, because if your expectation is here from someone that you just met, you're judging everything on a unfair scale. Even when we talked about God, Lorenzo said, trust people to do what they do. And I think this is where a lot of us make a mistake when we talk about trusting God. We trust God to do what we want him to do. And that's a very distinct difference from trusting God to do what he does. So Lorenzo, put it under a light of, trust a liar to be a liar, trust a backstabber to be a backstabber. Absolutely. But then when we say trust God, then it comes into, you know, like, what do I want from him? I trust him to make me wealthy. I trust him and it doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible. What we should trust God for is that he'll supply our needs, right? That he'll equip us with the things that we need to get what we want out of life. But then when we say what we want out of life, that expectation has to be set. I think that we live in such a materialistic world that when it comes to our expectations, they're so lofty in the wrong areas, right? Maybe give me more faith, give me more wisdom, give me more long suffering. Like the fruits of the spirit that it talks about in the Bible, none of those fruits of the spirit have anything to do with getting money or wealth or some of the other things that we look to get from the connections that we make with other people. And so setting that expectation at the beginning it is a big part of it. Expect people to be human. Human beings are flawed. And so because I expect that and I understand that I'm walking around with a mask on, right? I'm not completely healed. I understand that when I meet you, I know I'm talking to a mask and I know that you aren't completely healed. But where's the grace? Where's the mercy? Where's the understanding? Because we keep bringing up God, but where is grace, mercy, and understanding? And so if I understand that, hey, you're in a place where maybe you're not your best self, I can't expect your best self from you, but does that mean that I completely discard you as a person? Like Lauren said, maybe you're not in a position to help me. I need help. You can't help me. Maybe we just have conversations about the things that are bothering us. And we both leave those conversations feeling like, hey, I got a couple things off my chest. No, you can't solve my money problem. No, I can't solve your relationship issue, but you are someone that I could trust enough in this moment to have a conversation. And I don't expect anything more from you. I think too many relationships start off on the wrong foot because it's all about what am I going to get out of this, right? Whether it's romantic relationship, friendships, business relationship, we always start off with what's in it for me. And if we would lower that expectation and say, hey, what's in it for me is I'm connecting with another human being who's having similar life experience, and it's not about skin color, it's not about any of that. We all go through struggles. We all have different points in lives and things that we're dealing with. Let's just connect on that level, right? And then from there, now that we've opened up and I understand you and I know why you have your mask on and you know a little more about why I have my mask on, then we can reach a point of, okay, man, let's just take the mask off. You can tell me anything. I'll tell you anything. You tell me anything. Then we can get to the point that Andrew talked about where now we can have a plan for our relationship. But I think that a lot of times we just prematurely, skip steps in building that relationship. And so first is vulnerability. Hey, I accept you because you're a human being just like me. The next part is I accept your flaws and I'm willing to be vulnerable enough to share my flaws with you. And then those walls begin to come down and now we can actually make some sort of connection. That's what I gather out of that. Lorenzo, I'm sorry, Lauren, we were talking, you had something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say something real quick. There was a question that was asked earlier. When do you know if somebody's taking their mask off? There will be a point of vulnerability within that individual where you know that mask came off. And that point of vulnerability may not be a good point of vulnerability. It may be them getting, stupid drunk and them spewing off at the mouth. And that was their point of vulnerability where some things came out, but I think in a lot of cases, we know when that point came out. It's how we deal with it, and it's how we deal with it and how much we question it as far as the next steps. They just played themselves. They just played their card in a way that's not going to be conducive. Well, that was that moment of vulnerability, but then we start to question, well, maybe they were having a bad day or whatever the case may be. Or maybe it's on a positive note, but you're like, nah, that can't be real. That can't be real. Like, because some people are vulnerable at different times. There's always one person that's going to lead, whether it's in the friendship or whether it's relationship. Somebody's going to lead and be vulnerable first. it is the reaction to that vulnerability that creates the next steps in that relationship.
I agree. I agree. Do any of you men on the panel have anything that you wanted to add to the conversation at this point? Andrew. Oh, you're muted. Oh, you're still muted.
Okay, sorry. So I forgot what you said, but I think you said something like at this point, that's where when the draws come off or something like that. Did you say that?
That's exactly what I said. Yes.
Yeah. That's when the draws come off. Yeah. So at that particular point, when the draws come off, that might be the order that we don't recognize, because that vulnerability of, and I'm just kidding, Facebook, our audience, but that order of vulnerability, I just need somebody to talk to. I just need a good listener. I just need you to be honest with me in this situation. I just want to take my mask off and be myself. Sometimes in those instances, you might mistake that freedom of the mask as this need to be hugged, or this need to be held, or this need to be sexed, or this need to do something that the step number 10 is waiting on, like Andrew said, but you skip steps because you haven't gone through the full proposal. And what I wanted to offer, I think Lorenzo said something similar too. So forgive me about if I mess up your words, Lorenzo. So before we can be vulnerable, we need to be in a safe space. It is my opinion that we need to be in a safe space before we can be vulnerable, meaning I'm with this particular person and I don't know if I can be vulnerable with this particular person because they might ... Well, if I am confident in me, and if I have trust in me, and I know me, I've probably invited them to my safe space, regardless of what they do. They are going to do what they're going to do, like DMX said. But I am in my safe space, and I now know that the world will hurt me and attack me. But I have safety mechanism in this place that lets me know that, okay, that's just that person. It's not me. I finally learned that. I finally accepted that I know who I am, regardless of anyone else's comments. So I'm in my safe space. And another comment was, do you see God in others? Do you see God in yourself? Because if you see God in yourself, then it makes me believe that I am going to see that person before they take their mask off, which means I see that person wearing a mask already in the very beginning of the relationship. So I know that that person is not in a vulnerable state right now. Neither am I, because I see clearly. You know, that discernment says, okay, the person's wearing a mask. So we haven't even gotten to the point of the draws coming down, you know. And even when we do get to that point where the person takes the mask off, that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. You know, we went through the pre-beginning, but now when the mask comes off, that's just the beginning of this particular person showing the negotiation, meaning this is who I am, this is what I am, this is when I am, this is where I am, this is how I am, and this is why I am. And then you will tell that person your who, what, where, how, and why. And the two of you will actually begin to converse, to talk. And that fruit of the spirit, you know, all those things actually come into play, including time, space, grace, understanding, forgiveness, and so forth and so on. But we rush our plan, and we hope and we trust and we wish that that person will actually jump to step 11 with us because the first 3 steps, ooh, those are perfect. We can go straight to this now, and we'll deal with the rest later as they unfold. Well, that's us, and that is that God that's not in us. So instead of looking for that God outside of you, look for that God inside of you, and that God actually has a written plan, that shows the when, where, how's, what's, why's, and so forth and so on. So you don't have to trust yourself. The plan, you've already made the plan clear. All you have to do is follow it and trust it.
I think there's a point that brings to mind is that, one, before you could trust anyone else, you have to get to a place of trusting yourself, right? And so when you've made so many, in your mind, bad decisions about the people you've connected with, you no longer trust your ability to make that decision. And so the wall is boom. Because, last relationship I got in, I thought she was like this. Later, I found out she was like that. I connected with this one guy. He ended up screwing me over. I got in this business deal and I got screwed over there as well. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just horrible at picking, right? So now everybody that comes into your space, you're analyzing them at a much deeper level than you were. And every time you, in your mind, made a bad decision, the wall goes up higher, and every new person that enters your circle is analyzed even deeper, to a point that we don't even treat people like they're human, right? Like Lauren, you said it earlier in the show, the first thing you do that I don't like, I'm done. I'm done. And is it really because this person did something so egregious that they deserve to be kicked out of your circle permanently? Or is it because you've reached a point where you don't trust yourself any longer and you're like, wait a minute, I'm making one of those bad decisions again, I'm cutting it off right now? And I think that a lot of people reach that point and then they basically put themselves in a box where you can no longer really connect with anyone on a genuine level because your analysis is so hard, it's so deep, you dehumanize them, and now it's just you. At this point, we do start to try to wind the show down a little bit. We've got about 20 to 30 minutes left. I definitely don't know everything, and I don't ask all the right questions. And so this is the point where I ask anyone in the audience, or if you men on the panel have anything relating to trust that we may have missed that you want to make sure we touch on. Anybody in the audience or anybody on the panel?
So I'd like to address the last comment, Niecy Houston. I'm gonna be honest, I'm afraid now. Some people actually say that at this particular point, this is where birth or rebirth begins. And when I say that, meaning you actually have so much opportunity to be in control of who you are. And that does not mean be in control of that box. Because for me, at one point in time, I needed people to fit comfortably inside of my box. And that was an impossibility because when they brought all of their size, including all of their baggage, it got crowded in that box. And I didn't want them in that box anymore. What I did not realize is I wanted so desperately to be outside of my box. And I did not know how to get away from my fears of getting outside of my fear, or excuse me, my box. So this was an opportunity for me to trust me and say, you know what? I know what the world has done and what the world is capable of, but I've not really actually experienced what I have done and what I'm capable of. Let me step outside this box and see me for the first time and be me for the first time.
And this is why I feel like you need to keep a larger circle. Like when you get to a point where your lack of trust has narrowed your circle down to 1 or 2 people, maybe that's the person in your house that you're in a romantic relationship with, and maybe you've got one other friend. As Andrew said, people reach their own capacity in their boxes. As Lauren said, you may be coming to someone who's already filled with their own anger, hurts, and frustrations, and now you're trying to bring more to them. That's what I love about the Brotherhood of Elevating Men, because if I can't reach Lauren, trust me, I can reach Andrew. And if I can't reach Andrew, I can reach LaRon. And if I can't, I really believe this conversation is important, because if we can learn to trust, if we can forgive ourselves for trusting the wrong people in the past, we can expand our circle. And with an expanded circle, you have more opportunities to heal. You have more opportunities to advance. But when we stay closed off, we're so limited. We're so limited. Lorenzo, I definitely want to give you some time to talk. It's your first time on. Loved having you. What are you thinking right now?
I'm thinking right now, just listening to you guys, talk, this right here is developing a level of trust. And I believe that it starts with conversation. And in most conversations, for the conversation to be successful, somebody has to be listening. Usually when trust tends to fail is when you have two people speaking at the same time and nobody's listening. So that trust level tends to fall through the cracks because things don't get done. And when I say that with the conversation that we're having, it builds a level of trust. As I'm listening to you guys talk, I'm also listening to myself when I'm listening to myself on how I feel about what you guys are saying. In the idea of trust, like, how do I trust these men that are on this panel? I trust that if you guys came up with a plan that deals with the embetterment of men, I trust that you guys are going to take action, and I'm willing to step in with the trust that you're going to stay in the fight. Because a lot of times when we start to deal with people want to get into these fights, and then you jump in, you be like, okay, I'm on board. And once the blows start getting thrown, they back out and leave you in the fight that they started. And what I'm saying is that, and what I mean when I say that is that when you're tackling the idea of the embetterment of men, there's a fight ahead of you. There's a fight ahead, because as men, when we look at how long it's only been, you guys, it's only been like maybe 5 years that we've found the platform of social media so that we can be transparent. Before that, you didn't hear no man being transparent about what he was going through, how he felt about his past relationships, how he felt about the way women were treating him, how his homeboy did him wrong, how, like you mentioned, bad business deals. Now that we have social media, you see a lot of men coming out and talking about how they felt, with the way how they felt in situations where they were mistreated. We finally got to where we have the opportunity to realize that we're not the only one, because we have an outlet where we can be transparent. So now we have this opportunity where we can have these conversations to be transparent, not only just among ourselves, but our women can tune in and hear what it is that's going on inside of us, in the things that are coming out of us, so we can start developing these levels of trust that not only that we want, but we actually need these levels of trust. Because because what we've gone through in the past has not helped us one bit. Before social media, we've been in this revolving cycle, and we're finally as men, we're finally starting to take this type of action that we see now, where we're starting to kind of break that cycle, or making some attempts to break that cycle. Because what I believe the world is actually waiting on us, because we've been inactive. Our women been killing it. I think my last 4 mentors were women. And it wasn't by choice, but my last 4 mentors were women. I believe in my heart that the world is waiting on us to do something. I'm waiting on us to do something. I'm ready to fight with somebody. So I'm waiting. So when I see conversations like this or platforms like this, I'm all in. I'm like, okay, it looks like they starting to start a fight. Let me get in on this,
Andrew.
I got a question, and forgive me, I'm not trying to disrupt the moment, but Lorenzo says something like, before social media, men just didn't open up like this. I have a question for the ladies. Ladies, did I? Oops, excuse me, not I, but men like me, or did men ever have that pillow talk with you? Like, man, she just don't understand me, and man, if I just had a woman that just wouldn't do me wrong, like my past, because I've just and whatever it took to get you in a vertical position to soothe my pain and say, well, I'm different and I'll take care of you and I won't do you like that. And ladies, did I do? Excuse me, did you ever hear anything like that before? And the only reason I'm saying that is some men have been very transparent about their pain for a lot of selfish reasons, because they found out that there are a lot of people out there who really want to help heal, but we just take advantage of it because we don't know what our real purpose of standing up and building is. Like Lorenzo alluded to, it's time for the man. It's time for the man. It's past time for the man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that happens. I know that happens. That pillow talk. The lady that's saying that they have heard it before. They have heard it before. Yeah, there can be disingenuous vulnerability. Absolutely. I also feel that someone who is being disingenuous with their vulnerability has some pretty deep issues.
Exactly.
Some very, very deep issues that aren't going to be solved by that horizontal position that you talked about. In fact, because I've been there before, you'll actually get up from that horizontal position feeling like less of yourself, right? Because a temporary pleasure is never going to be a replacement for true healing. And that's why you see men who not only drink alcohol, but they become alcoholics. Mm-hmm. And they drink for so long, over such a long span of time, that now they're having liver and kidney issues and ending up on dialysis and having early heart attacks and strokes, etc. And so we take these little medicines that we think are going to help us, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, or whatever. It gives us a temporary boost, and then we're right back at it a day or two later, an hour later. And it's to our own detriment. Mm-hmm. It's to our own detriment. And so the truth of the matter is, one advice for the women is make sure that, as Andrew said before, one, slow down, truthfully, slow down, get to know the person that you're dealing with. Don't cross the line of becoming their medicine until the masks have come completely off. And not the, oh, let me tell you about when I was a kid, or, surface level stuff. You'll understand when that mask has come off. I'll be real transparent. My brother's here on this panel. I've had some very transparent moments with them. And anybody that kind of knows, I'm not somebody that just bust out crying all the time. I'm not. But Lauren has heard it. Andrew has heard it. I'm just telling you, and so, yes, it can be difficult to understand if the vulnerability is real or not, but there's something within you as a person that will connect with that true vulnerability. And don't let the first time that you hear the vulnerability come up say, oh, he's being vulnerable, let me give him some medicine, right? Because if it's true vulnerability, it's not going to be a one-time thing, because we all have so much to unpack. We've talked about, our parents, hurt from our parents, hurt from our friends, hurt from business relationships, hurt from past loves, hurt from this, hurt from that. What I've found is the relationships that have been the most fruitful for me, there was a ton of conversation. There was some medicine, but there was a whole lot of conversation. And I think a lot of times we flip it on its head and it's medicine, 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 medicine. Let's talk a little bit, medicine, 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 medicine. And it becomes an addiction to the point where now the talking's out the window, the unpacking of the feelings is thrown out the window, and now it's just a medicine-filled relationship that is only to the both of your detriment at that point. Because there was a poem that I read at the beginning, and I'll just summarize it. Sometimes we're so open at the beginning with one person, and they hurt us, and they leave with a piece of us. So the next time someone comes in, we say we're going to give less, and then we're going to give less, and then we're going to give less. But our expectations remain high. So we want to give a little and get a lot. And there is no way in the world that that's ever going to work between two human beings. And so if you want to be able to give all of yourself, be patient and allow that person to give of themselves as well. And when it becomes an equal exchange, you know, maybe the medicine isn't as bad. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think if you're giving to the plan, it actually takes the person out of the plan. Meaning the man says, this is who I am. This is where I'm going. Would you like to be a part of this plan? Would you like to be my helpmate? This is when we will have other helpers in the form of our children that we will groom to take our stead later in life. This is how we will grow this plan so that it will grow and take care of us in our older years. There's a lot to be said in a proposal, but I don't think that we understand just how deeply women can sit back and wait on what he's proposing, or more so, what he's not proposing. Listen.
Kareem, man, listen, I gotta go back. Is that what she was laughing at, Lojo?
Yeah.
I gotta go back. Hold up. He said, damn, I drink, smoke, and have sex. Am I screwed? The short answer would be no. You know, there are things that we do for pleasure and enjoyment, and as long as it's done in moderation and in the right state of mind, you're an adult, do what you do. But what we're talking about is when it becomes an addiction, when it becomes something that you need to feel normal. If that's the point that you're at, you know, then you may need to kind of evaluate some things. Lorenzo, what's your thought on that? I'm just curious.
What's that?
The last comment, let me put it up here. He says, I drink, smoke, and have sex. Am I screwed? And that was, I believe that was in response to me saying that, you know, if you're doing those things as a coping mechanism, it's a problem. But just in general, what are your thoughts?
Yes, you know, in moderation, but like I said, you don't want to do anything that's going to feed into the pain that you're already going through, that's going to cause you more injury. Like I said, you know, as men, yes, there are things that we do that may not be beneficial to us necessarily in the long run, but I would definitely say, you know, take in consideration not only your own mental, physical, and emotional health, but the health of the person, the persons that you are with, when you're indulging in your moderate behavior.
For sure. Man, we got about 10 minutes left before we wrap up. Is there anything that you just need to get off your chest? Lauren.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. We say that we make this statement, and I'm not so sure it's true. We talk about you know, men aren't we don't express ourselves unless we're in a safe space first. And I honestly don't necessarily find that to be true. You know, think of it like, you know, how you had a domino set up, you hit one and then they all start falling. I think it just takes that one person to say something that you connect with. And that is that. And maybe that's what that safe space is. But I have often heard guys, once they make a connection with something somebody said, just start spewing. And again, if that's the definition of a safe space, then maybe that statement is true. But I think in a lot of cases, I think men do spew once they've made some type of connection with something that they can relate to. I think for a lot of us, when we start talking about, you know, not having a father in a home, that's a big one. And I don't really again, I don't feel like you have to be in a certain setting. It's just, oh, yep, me too, man. My pop wasn't there either, man. Let me tell you about that bastard or whatever. And so I think it's more sometimes just a common connection gets men to open up.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's really how Elevating Men started. Honestly, I was going through a personal journey after my father passed away. I had some very vulnerable conversations that I'd never had with men that I had been knowing for years. And as I began to open up and talk about certain things and the way that I was feeling and mistakes that I made, regrets that I had, they started opening up, and I was able to quickly realize that we had a shared life experience, right? And so now that we have common ground, we can actually develop some sort of common unity or community, as Andrew says. And so, yeah, leading with vulnerability, I believe, goes a long way in creating the friendships and the relationships that we really desire to have. We're almost wrapping up here. I just want to give you guys a quick reminder while I still have you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. If you're in Kansas City, tune into 107.3 FM. If you're not, I believe you can catch it online. But myself, as well as Lauren, the Vice President of Elevating Men, will be speaking with Darren Story about men's mental health. It's going to be a great conversation, so I don't want you to miss out. And also mark your calendars. If you know any men who this type of conversation will resonate with, I want them to come out on the 25th of this month, February 25th. We're going to be at the Oasis Church with Pastor Brooks, and we're going to have what's called the Man Cave Prayer Breakfast. I want as many men as possible to be there so we can heal together. It's going to be a great event. Fellas, do you guys have anything else that you guys want to talk about? Any other thoughts, concerns? Lorenzo, I enjoyed having you on, bro. Enjoyed it.
I enjoyed having y'all I'm happy that y'all had me on, man. But to kind of close out, I just want to say this, especially to the women that are listening. When you do find that man that decides to open up, he starts to be transparent, give him that opportunity. Let him have that time. Try not to. One of the things we got to stop doing is comparing each other's pain. Oh, my pain was worse, or mine was better, or whatever the case may be. But let him go ahead and be transparent. Let him express himself, and vice versa. Men, when you have that woman that's opening up and being transparent, don't laugh at her or tease her about it or make fun of it. But once we start allowing each other to be transparent and express ourselves and take it seriously, then we can kind of start to have a sense of healing at some point and being able to trust and do this more often and more frequently.
Love it. One thing that we always do, Lorenzo, let people know how to connect with you. If you have any projects or anything that you have going on where you need support, please go ahead and let us know so we can get behind you.
Hey, man, you can definitely reach out to me. See me on my social media page, Lorenzo T. Hughes. You can see me on Instagram. It's going to be a time to speak life. So it's A period, time period, 2 period, speak. And you'll see me on Instagram. Oh, right. Website, www.atimetospeak.life.
All right. So you heard it there. Make sure that you support this brother here. He's a good man, very diligent in what he does, very, very consistent, sharp brother. And so follow Lorenzo T. Hughes on social media. Andrew, I know you were jotting something down because you had something to say. What's on your chest, brother?
Oh, no, I was just writing down his website. What I wanted to say is I believe that some people say that, hey, once trust is broken, trust is gone. I would like to ask each and every one of you to consider telling me on our next show, or just not even telling me, just jotting it down for yourself. What are all the agents in that bottled water that you drink every single day? What is in the Freon that comes out of your air conditioning? What is inside of those monoglutamate polysorbate 77 that are in your favorite sauces? Tell me all the things that you actually trust over and over and over that are killing us.
Mm, mm. It's man, that's a whole other conversation, but you are so right. So right. We say that we don't trust anything, we don't trust anyone, we don't trust anybody, we don't trust our friends, we don't trust our family. But for some reason we trust all these chemicals we put in our body and so many other things. That's a deep thought. That's a deep thought. For those who are watching who may not be familiar with you, and just 20, 30 seconds, can you let them know how to find you and what it is that you do? Andrew.
Oh, I'm sorry. Andrew, Rest in 2050, right below my name. That's my website. The restoration is designed to build the year 2050, put resources in place before it gets here so that we can actually prepare a better equipped generation to take those resources, add to those resources so they can pass them on to the year 2100 and repeat the process through 2150 through 2200 throughout our next generations so that they will not be talking about what we need to do 100 years from now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Lojo, final thoughts. Let them know who you are, where they can find you, and what it is that you do.
Hey, look, you can find me all over social media: Facebook, Lojo Speaks, Instagram, Lojo Speaks. In the daytime before I'm doing all of this, Lopez Boys Auto Sales. If you need wheels, let me get you whipping the right way. All things fatherhood, very near and dear to my heart. So fatherhood is my journey that I am going to be sharing with the world until I don't have a breath to breathe. So love y'all for being committed to watching us every single week. Thank you so much for the love and support.
Absolutely. I want to echo that. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate your support. We appreciate the shares, the likes, the comments, the adding to the conversation, because that's extremely important. So we don't have all the answers here. And I think that's one of the problems that we have in this social media age is we're looking for the leader, right? And I believe that the leadership is a collective. It's a collective of thoughts. It's a collective of ideas. And so we appreciate everyone that comes in and leaves their thoughts in the comment section, because it opens our mind as well. This is a source of our healing. So we're not here as the authority. We're just here as men who are willing to be vulnerable and transparent to open up a conversation in hopes that through that conversation, some words will be said that can affect someone's life. And I can tell you that there's been many shows that just because I'm moderating doesn't mean I've got it all together, because I don't. Many shows that I've had to go back and listen to and pull gems out that I can apply to my own life. And I can tell you that this is also one of them. I'm A.L. Johnson. I'm the president of Elevating Men. I'm also the owner of A.L. Johnson Life Insurance Agency. And so when I'm not talking about mental health, I'm talking about building generational wealth for your family, which is something I feel is so important. In our communities, between mental health and a lack of financial resources, a lot of the problems that we see fit in one of those two buckets. And so I'm very passionate about those two things. You can find out more information about my insurance business at aljohnsonlifeinsurance.com. And if you want to connect with us on our mental health journey, visit elevatingmen.com. So we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Thank you all for tuning in, and make sure you share this with the people in your network and have your own conversations. We appreciate each and every one of you. Have a good night.